Hey, thanks for listening in to the REC Experience. Today is Season 2, Episode 19. And with me, as always, is our executive producer / Crazy 8, Laura Elto Stewart. What's going on, girl?
I feel like I live here.
Why is that?
Because we're always here.
Always working. There's always...
Yeah.
You know, people have been asking us a lot, right? Like, we see this new studio, and do you guys sell real estate still? Yes, the answer is we sell a lot of real estate.
Definitely.
We help people buy, sell, and invest. This is not a promo by any means, but as always, we're just trying to bring as much value as we possibly can to our listeners and our viewers now, and that's kind of it. Like, this is what we do, and we do it from this room.
This is the fun part.
Yeah, I do
all
agree
of
with
it's
you.
the fun part, but this is a passion project.
Yeah, this really is a passion project, right? And it's neat because we're able to mix it all in together. Talk about real estate, we can talk about entrepreneurship, and get really as many leaders as we possibly can and get their strategies and tips and advice out to our listeners and viewers. So it's kind of neat that we can package it all in one and have a blast doing it. So that's amazing. This week's episode was a super blast with 3 very inspiring ladies.
Yes, one of our pod sessions. We had Grace, Lisa, and Cathy joining us.
Yeah, I met these 3 ladies about 2.5 years ago. We sat at a Tim Hortons and we spoke about, maybe the possibility of owning one property. And now, after a couple of years, there's multiple properties. And just the fact that they were willing to listen and then heed the advice and actually take action was the most inspiring. And you mentioned it after we finished, like right after we finished the episode, Laura, you're like, wow, I learned a lot. What was so inspiring to you?
Well, I mean, maybe it's because I connect with them on a woman level, but just hearing their stories about getting started, and obviously their husbands are aware of what they're doing, and they're supporting them, to the fullest extent, but that they've really just taken it upon themselves to do this with the husbands not being involved. You don't see that necessarily a lot in real estate investing, and I'm glad to see more of it now. We always talk about how women, generally speaking, when just purchasing a home for a family to live in, they're kind of the final decision maker, and they kind of go home and say, I really want that house because the kids will be in the kitchen and the dog in the backyard or whatever it may be. But with investing, we typically work with more of the husband. So I liked seeing a lot, to hear what they had to say about women getting involved and doing it themselves.
And not only that, they're so comfortable now working the numbers, and they always ask the right questions. They know what they don't know, and those are the questions that they're asking. They're wanting to sit down with the professionals. But what I found most inspiring is that they're willing to take action. Because the amount of people that we sit down with, Laura, and our team sits down with, that I hate to say it like this, but I'm going to say it anyways, right? Like, they talk a big game, but at the end of the day, they don't even take action. And I don't mean take action by necessarily buying or investing or selling a home. I mean just like learning more and getting educated about what they what they want to do. With these women, not only did they do all that, but they actually took action by investing and doing it together. And you could tell, like in the episode, how much fun they're having.
Yeah, they're having a blast. Like, this is their passion project, really,
so true.
On the side. And it's interesting because when you say take action, it doesn't mean go out tomorrow and throw your money at something. It means start the process of doing the due diligence, I think. And these women, although they're friends, and I'm sure they have a wonderful relationship, they really wanted to preserve that friendship, and they started drafting a joint venture agreement, and they've worked out their exit strategy. And I thought that was also very interesting because, just to preserve that, to preserve the friendship, they wanted to make sure they had all their ducks in a row ahead of time, which would have taken a little bit of time up front, but it's allowed them to then move full force now that they've started.
So true. As always, guys, like the video if you liked it, and as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel, share the podcast. You can hear the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. There's iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and feedback is what we, it's essentially our oxygen. We really learn a lot just from all the comments that you guys leave below. Laura, thank you again for joining me.
You're very welcome.
All right, guys, have a blast. Thank you very much. Take care. So I'm so excited today to have our first pod session in our new studio. About a couple of years ago, it was actually a cold night in Greater Toronto, and I drove up to a Tim Hortons. Anybody who knows Brampton will know, in the area of Airport and Mayfield, so I don't live too far from there. And I was driving up and I was wondering, who am I going to be meeting today? And obviously our listeners know that that's just what I do. I just go wherever the meetings are. And I met with two ladies at that time. You obviously on video see three ladies, and we're going to go through the introductions. But at that time, I met two ladies, Grace and Lisa. Lisa to my left and Grace to my right. And as we sat down, had some coffee, cold night, we spoke for about an hour and a half. It went on, maybe even a little bit longer. And we spoke and we talked about some long-term plans. What are we thinking about doing in terms of real estate investing? And then about a year later, I met the third person in our camera today, Cathy. And so I'm going to go around a little bit and just have them introduce themselves and talk about, ladies, just talk about, your family situations, where you guys kind of live in whatever areas. So I'll start to my left. Lisa, say hi.
Hi,
Thanks
I'm Lisa.
Thanks for joining us today.
I'm very delighted to be here. Hello, everyone. I'm Lisa.
Yes.
I currently am working. I'm
Yeah.
a project manager. I am married and I have 4 children.
And project manager, what does that consist of? Elaborate a little bit more.
So it's in a software development firm.
Okay.
So we develop software for the real estate industry.
Interesting.
Oddly enough.
Yeah.
So it's all about cash flowing and deciding your strategy. Do I hold? Do I sell? Do I renovate? Do I whatever? So been lots of fun. Lots of overlap with what I'm doing in my personal life.
Yeah.
And enjoying it.
How many kids, you said?
4.
4.
Yes.
Can I ask the ages?
Sure.
Thank you.
Between 27 and 19. We've got boy, girl, boy, girl.
Awesome.
Patrick, Christina, Michael, and
Do
Catherine.
they keep you a little busy?
You know what? It's interesting. So this is actually part of the reason that we're doing what we're doing. Raising them, absolutely.
Yeah.
But then we're pretty much empty nesters, my
Right.
husband and I. So we have time.
That's awesome.
Yes.
And that's
Okay.
why, obviously, and we're going to dive into that a lot more,
Yeah.
why you started to probably think about real estate.
Absolutely.
So hold your thought on
Yes,
that.
I will.
To your left is Cathy. How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
So I'm going to ask how you met these ladies, but before I do that, tell me a little bit about yourself.
A little bit of myself. I also work. I'm also a project manager. I'm
Not at the same place?
No.
Okay.
With an insurance company, and I've got one daughter. She's downtown on her own, basically, and she works for a financial institution as well. And that's pretty well it.
Awesome.
Keep busy and
Keeping busy. And,
all the time.
and how old is she, your daughter?
She's 28.
Okay. And she's been living downtown for how long?
About 3 years now. So
Okay.
3, 4 years. Actually, it'll be 3 years in December.
Was that tough?
So, no, actually, I helped her. It wasn't tough for her. It was tough for me.
That's what I mean. Was it tough for you? Yeah. A little, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Took some more getting used to it.
Yeah, no, but she was interested in moving downtown because
Right.
she worked down there and she
Right.
didn't want the commute. So she moved down there and right away was like, I want to buy. It's
Right.
like, well, before you buy, why don't you feel it out and make sure it's the area you want to be in. And so she rented for a year.
Nice.
And then she decided to buy. So she got a nice little place just right on Queen's Quay. across from the
Is it on the north side or south side? Do you know?
of Queens
Of Queens Quay.
North side.
On the north side.
Yeah,
Okay, perfect. So
yeah.
right on the harbor front there.
Right on the harbor front. Yeah.
So do
It's
you go there probably
fantastic.
more in the summer there? And
Oh
yeah.
yeah. It's gorgeous. I mean, she's got a beautiful view. It overlooks the lake.
Oh wow.
Yeah, she's got a nice corner unit, so she did well for herself.
Yes, I want that. That's real nice.
Yeah, now she's chasing me. Oh, you should buy some more units. It's like,
Come on. It's just not that easy.
yeah, exactly.
And
Anyhow,
you lovely lady to my right.
Good evening. I'm Grace. I have 3 children.
Okay.
So I have a daughter that is 26, I have to think about this, and twin boys that are 24.
Okay.
And I'm a project manager as well, so 3
Interesting. I
project
did not know
managers
that.
here.
I did not know
Yeah,
that.
absolutely,
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I worked in software
Okay.
industry for, over 30 years. My husband has his own business, so he's an entrepreneur. A lot of my brothers are all entrepreneurs. So my mother-in-law told me that I should become an entrepreneur way a long time ago, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So this is my new avenue, so it's kind of cool.
Before I move on, I just want to say cheers. And Cathy, thank you for driving today.
Yes.
We appreciate
Cheers.
that. And so we will definitely say cheers to everyone and salud.
Cheers, and
Thank you
thank you for having us today, Jas. This is great.
Look, ladies, I told you off air. This means so much, and so as I was saying, 2 years ago we met, but now to actually sit down and see what you girls have accomplished is awesome. And then now the fact that you're willing to share this with the world essentially, that really means a lot to me, because obviously I've done something right for you guys to come here and do this essentially for me. So again, thank you. How did you 3 meet? I'm just going to throw that out there and you guys kind of go.
You go ahead.
So Lisa and I are neighbors,
Right.
And we've been neighbors for close to 20 years.
Okay.
And we're avid walkers. We, not so much now because it's getting a little bit colder, but we typically walk 3 or 4 times a week. And during all of our walks, we talk about lots of different things. And over the years, we always talked about having our own business and starting up a venture on our own.
Okay, so I want to paint a little bit of a picture. Just like literally going for walks and kind of going back and forth saying, we should start a business, not knowing what business.
No.
Continue.
We're all over the map in terms
Good.
of what business.
It's usually what happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And Cathy, well, I've known Cathy.
Careful.
I don't want to give I don't want to give our ages away, so I'm going to go from grade school. Okay.
Grade school.
Is that fair? Yeah. I'm not going to say number of years, just grade school.
Yeah.
okay?
Just a few years ago. Come on. Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, we go back a long way.
Okay.
A long way.
And so then I guess the introduction to Lisa happened, and you guys kind of just hit it off.
We did, yeah.
Okay.
Well-
Just it's social groups, right? Social
Well,
groups.
how
with
do you
Karen.
know Lisa, Cathy?
And we
Lisa?
actually worked together for 4 or 5 years.
Coincidentally. It was like- it was just
Yes.
out
It
of the
was.
blue.
Did you guys know at that time that they knew each
We
other?
did,
Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we knew each other socially first, and then definitely. at work.
So you two are going for walks now. You're going back and forth, Lisa and Grace, and thinking, okay, what should we do? I'm sure. Did we try anything before we got into investing into real estate?
Well, so by virtue of having lots of kids
Okay.
and moving away from school, one of
Right.
the thoughts that we had thought about was we're paying a lot of rent to get these kids
Yes, I remember this now.
into their respective places. And is there an opportunity for us maybe to buy a unit, and certainly house the kids as they're going through it, and then use it as an income property later on. So we toyed with that idea for a little bit, and then we just couldn't make the numbers work. I mean, during that time, we also met with your uncle. So over to you about the Uncle Sam story.
Yeah.
Over to Grace.
So when we did the kids and do we buy something?
Yes.
We didn't know what we knew today,
Exactly,
right?
we
Through
didn't.
going
You're
through the
absolutely right.
education session
Yeah,
and
yeah.
understanding real estate and the 4 ways to win and all that kind of stuff. And so one day, my uncle decided to take Lisa and I out for coffee, and my uncle said to us, "You two ladies need to get into real estate." And we're like, "Real estate? Really? I'm not too sure." And he goes, "No. Definitely something that you need to get into." He's been into it for a number of years himself. And we kind of hummed and hawed about it, but we thought, okay, somehow we have to make this work. And a couple of years later, we did.
Yeah.
We decided.
Planted the seed.
Yeah.
And so what made, sorry, you were going to say, Cathy?
No, take the plunge.
Okay, yeah, just take the plunge. I'm going to we're going to really talk about taking the plunge in that sense. Was the first step, because I know how I have met Grace and Lisa, and Cathy I met through through Grace and Lisa, was to go get educated? Like how did, because we all met through an investment group.
Yes.
Okay. A very large investment group.
So
Go on.
I'm going to jump in. So
Yes.
what happened for me in particular was I don't work. So these two ladies are still very active at work. I don't have a full-time job per se, but I have this project management skill behind me. And
I find that so funny, by the way. I had to say, like, all three of you project managers, that's so odd. Okay, go.
yeah. But I wanted to learn something new.
Okay.
I've been in that industry for a long time. I can manage things. I can figure it all out. But I wanted to really learn something new. And, my uncle said to get into real estate, and I thought, okay, so here's something that's new out there. I have a nephew that's into real estate as well, very successful at it. I know a lot of people that are into real estate and very successful at it. So I thought, okay, I need to educate myself to determine, is this something I really want to do? And so Lisa and I went to one session on educating ourselves, and then we decided, do we take the plunge and go one step further? So when we decided if we go one step further, I kind of went down inside and I asked myself, my heart, okay, only go there if you're going to commit yourself to it.
That's it.
Don't let fear overtake you, because that's what happens to us, right?
does, yeah.
We try not, like you said, to overanalyze things and determine, should we do this or not? And I said, I'm only going to go into this session if I'm going to commit myself to doing something with this education that I'm going to receive, and I'm going to move forward. I'm not going to look behind me anymore. I'm going to move forward.
Yeah, that was a turning moment. It really was. Yeah.
And you remember this moment as
I
well.
do.
So, and
I do.
what is it? Is it just a matter of committing and then taking the plunge, as Cathy said? Like, why do you think, and this is open to everyone to kind of just pipe in, why do people have such a hard time taking the plunge?
It's a big investment. It's not like you're going into a bubblegum store. Well, bubblegum is, I'm really
true.
aging myself, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
and buying just something that's a few cents, a few dollars, whatever. It's a big commitment. It's not just a commitment; it's the dollars. It's coming up with the money, and it's getting much tougher now
Right.
with all the government regulations.
sure.
Yeah.
It's that much tougher, and I really feel bad for the young kids these days. It's like
Absolutely.
it's
it is.
hard for them to get anything. My daughter was lucky enough
3 years ago.
to jump in.
Timing, right?
It wasn't cheap, but I helped her along the way.
Sure.
And, and I only have the one child, so it's easier to deal with one than try to,
Yeah, spread it out. And,
Exactly.
Yeah.
But taking that first step is also, it's scary.
Right.
And like Grace was saying, you have to overcome that fear. And sometimes you have to learn, you have to make mistakes.
Yes.
And if you make a mistake, you don't turn around and go, that's it, I'm not doing this anymore. You learn from them and move on.
Yeah.
Love it.
Right? And
So true.
yeah, I mean, my first real estate, the first time I bought any real estate, I was 24 years old. And my dad was into real estate. So I kind of watched him and I was intrigued.
Right.
And I went out and bought all the books back then. You bought books, you didn't have
for sure.
computers back then. I lived in a family, European background, so it was tough to do anything without getting almost approval, consent.
Yes.
So unless you were married, you weren't supposed to move out on your own. So I bought this place telling my dad, I'm going to invest in it. And I really wanted to move into it, but, you know, it was like he was giving me the, you know,
Well, think
not
about
yet.
what do you think about it, Cathy?
So I had no choice but to really rent it out, you know, and I learned a lot from it, right? I had no clue. I thought, where do I get a tenant? So you look around, you ask the agents, you know, the experts,
Right.
and they help you out, and
Yeah.
that's how it started. And then the next property I bought, I flipped, and back then the rules weren't where, you know, you flip and you pay the government. It was sort of a
Well, hang on now. So the second property that you bought, you just went on, like, what did you do? Did you renovate it and then flip it? And
no. The first property I kept.
The first
I
one you
rented.
kept and rented. Then
I
the
bought
second
a second
one, yeah.
and flipped it.
Like
It
you
was
literally
brand
bought
new.
it. What did you do to it? Oh, you bought it brand new.
Brand new.
You flipped it just before closing,
Yeah.
after closing. And
Just
what
after
made
closing.
you do that at that time? You just was there a lot of
Well, I
profit
thought,
that you
well,
saw? You saw?
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I thought, oh, so I mean, my motivation was, you know, where do I make some extra money? Because I
Right.
mean, I had a job, but it was like, I'm not making enough. Like, I mean, I want to have something, you
Right.
know, and I want to grow it.
Yeah.
And it started off from there. And
I'm curious what did Dad say when you did the second flip, like the second?
Well,
property
actually,
that you
he bought one too.
I love it.
Okay,
This works.
but wait a minute, I learned from you.
That's awesome.
So we bought in the same building, actually.
Oh wow! Is this in
yeah.
Toronto?
No, it was actually in North Brampton,
Oh,
by
okay.
the courthouse.
Oh, yeah, I know where
They're
that is. Yeah,
Brand
yeah,
new,
yeah.
brand new buildings on Ray Lawson, just
yes.
off of Ray Lawson.
Yeah, for sure.
And it just went from there. So
So now, how did you three connect from the perspective of let's do this together? So now bring me into
Go
this
ahead,
because
yeah.
2 years ago,
Yes.
when we met at the coffee shop,
Yes.
I did not. I can't remember, but correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember Kathy's name coming up.
Kathy
No,
wasn't in the
Right?
picture.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, so, sorry, Lisa.
No, you go ahead.
When we were talking to you, and you were showing us, some opportunities for us, and we were looking at them, a lot of them were new builds, right, or new
Yes.
condos,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So they were going to close in a year or 2 years or 3 years, right? And we're like, okay, that sounds cool. You know, we can make some money, da. And so a year later, we said, okay, we don't want a new one. We want something that's going to cash flow now.
I remember the phone call. Yes.
Yeah,
Like it was
we
yesterday.
want something that's going to cash flow
Yeah.
now.
Yes.
Enough of this,
Yeah.
in a year or two from
Exactly.
now, right?
Yes.
We want to get something for this education and money for bang for a buck now.
Mm-hmm.
So you presented something to us that was cash flowing now.
Yes.
But to Cathy's point,
Yeah.
it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
It was a lot of money. So we thought, we know a really good friend
Yes.
that knows lots about real estate too.
Who's done this before?
Let's ask her if she wants to go in as a partnership,
Yeah,
because
there's-
everything's about partnership, right?
Right.
And being open
Sure.
and honest, and so we asked Cathy, and Cathy, what did you say?
yeah. Oh well, I was at first. I mean, I gave it some thought, and I thought, oh, well, I mean, it wouldn't hurt. We looked at the numbers.
Right.
Absolutely, the numbers have to make sense, obviously, and basically, yeah, we just went in as a joint venture together, and
So I remember,
we gotta- yeah.
I'm sure there was a time where we were on a call together when we were just putting that investment deal together. Can you take us to kind of behind the scenes a little bit? Like when you three were talking about it, what questions did you have, Cathy, for Grace and Lisa? This is the first time you're doing it with them, from what I understand, right?
Yeah,
We've never
it
done
is.
this
It
together
was our
before.
first-
So
yeah,
at
it was
that
our first
time, was it easier because you had a little bit of trust with Grace and knowing Lisa before?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
yeah. No,
Obviously.
absolutely. Yeah, because I knew them already, right?
Yeah.
It's not like I'm jumping in with a total stranger and
Right.
sort of, the trust has already been built
Sure.
there, and that made it a lot easier.
Okay.
I
But we're
was a
still talking
little-
about money, right? We're still talking about a lot of money that you're going to invest.
Oh, absolutely,
So,
right?
Yes.
So I was a little skeptical just about going in with someone else because I've always bought on my own, and I
Right.
thought, well, what if I change my mind about something, and what if I want out
Yeah.
in a couple of years and they still want in? So that's where the contract comes in, and we talked about it. We were very open and honest about what we wanted in that contract and what had to work for all of us.
Let's talk a little bit about that if you're okay with
Yeah.
it. And if you're not,
Yeah.
we'll talk about it, and then, like I said, we'll edit it out.
Yeah.
But I think we're fine with it. what did we put into place? Now I really remember, because it's actually gonna be funny. That call that I took I remember I was driving right around the same Tim Hortons we met that us four got on a call when you were talking about doing a joint venture contract.
That's correct.
What was important to put into place and stuff?
So
Because there's three people, it's not two. Three.
And because of the friendship, we didn't want to jeopardize the friendship
Right.
because
Key.
of
Absolutely.
business transaction.
Yeah.
So it was really important that we hammer out all the details.
Okay.
And so the details right down to Cathy's question. So what if I want to pull out and you guys don't?
Yes.
Right? So
Okay.
again, there's a lot of material out there. Grace, again, because she had the time and the willingness, she pulled together drafts. And so we went through a number of those drafts, and we finessed and refined clauses, and they were really just clause by clause to say, okay, so one of us wants to pull out. God forbid, one of us passes away. I mean, it's all the scenarios that we worked through to come up with something that we could all three agree to.
I see. So
Totally
many.
And over to you.
transparent.
It was. It
Right.
was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did you find all these little samples and all that kind of stuff?
So
Grace?
through the web and some tools that were provided to us,
Yeah.
we just pulled everything together. And once we had a complete draft, and
Bingo.
to Lisa's point, I mean, we threw this back and forth a number of times, too many times, but we wanted to make sure that we were all really comfortable to the
Yeah.
point of how much money do we want to keep in the bank, right?
Yes, down to those details.
What the scope
Reserve
of this is
fund.
and everything.
Reserve
yeah.
funds, yep.
Right?
So you said, hang on, I didn't mean to cut you off, Chris, but you said you went back a few times, and then you mentioned that maybe too many times. Try to remember, like, are we talking this took 6 months or this took 6
No.
days? Like,
Okay, so you know what? When it was the three of us, it didn't take 6 months. But
Yes.
when it was Lisa and I,
first time,
it
yes.
was definitely 6
Yes,
months.
it
So
was.
Lisa and I had
Yeah.
a base we created a base.
Yes.
Okay.
It was just
because
adding
when
one
it's
more
just-
person and
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
it was
when
the first
Lisa and
time.
I were creating it just for ourselves, it probably took us 6 months.
It did.
Because
It did.
we kept going back and forth, and we would drop it and sit on it for a month
Yep.
and just
Reflect.
think about it and reflect, absolutely.
right.
And so when Cathy came into play, we completely transparent with her up front said, Cathy, we have a joint venture agreement between the two of us because, business is business and friendship is
For
totally
sure.
separate.
For sure.
We're going to give you what we have, and then we want you to slice and
Slice and dice.
Play
Yeah.
devil's advocate, so to speak,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. So
And
she
I-
had some stuff to add to
Yeah.
it, and we added it.
Yeah.
In the end, we actually got a lawyer to review it and
That's
vet
it.
it for us.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and he
And he was
or
like-
she did okay.
He
yeah.
was like, there's not much I can add to this,
That's
guys,
awesome.
because
As a matter of fact, he cut his price on it.
How did you
anything. We basically did it. It was just
yeah.
reviewing it,
Yeah.
making sure that it was all put
So we
together.
had to-
That's so easy.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh, it's great.
It blew us away, actually, is what it did.
So every once in a while, we review it, and we go, okay, so we might have some cash flow here. Okay, let's go to the JV agreement.
Let's
What
see
can we
what we-
pull out, and what do we have to stay there? And we don't ask each other, it's what does the joint venture agreement tell us?
Oh, I love that.
We
You just-
agreed on that we can do,
Yeah.
Kind of the
right?
Bible, right? You use
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
And that's exactly what it
JV
is. It's
agreement.
impartial. It was agreed to by all of us.
Yeah.
It was, objective. Yeah.
And out of the three, I generally speak to Grace most of the time because she's the one who will call me at
So that's 'cause
midnight.
I'm
Sometimes
the
no,
one
I'm
not
kidding.
working. I'm the one not working.
no.
I
she's-
love
yeah.
Grace
Yeah.
for this
Yeah.
because she just asks whatever's on her mind.
Absolutely,
And
yes.
I guess her being the point person.
Yeah.
Was that
Yeah.
talked about and was that spoken about? I don't know if that was within the joint
we did.
venture agreement or
We
just
did.
verbally.
We
Because you
do.
need one person to essentially be kind of the project manager, so to speak.
Yeah, we do.
Actually, it is in writing.
It is in writing.
it is.
And,
Oh,
and,
even better.
and we rotate.
Yeah.
We've agreed to rotate it on an
Even
annual
doing the
basis.
books and
all that, yeah.
all the accounting
Yeah.
and that sort of
All
thing
of that.
is all. Yep.
It's all okay.
documented.
Okay. And I wanted to go back to that because I think that's where I see a lot of people not willing to take the next step because they're scared to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's something that they learned at
project
school.
managers, are you just,
It's
Yeah.
yeah. Now I understand actually because I knew
helps a bit.
Lisa was the project. I knew that.
Yeah.
I forgot about Grace and I did not know that Cathy was a project manager. That's so cool that all
it
three of
is.
you are. Now, what is sitting now, 2018, going into 19? What's kind of your thoughts in terms of what options you're looking for from a real estate investment perspective? And I guess what I'm trying to ask is it buy and hold? What strategies are you considering?
Yeah.
So I'll start. One of the prime reasons, certainly Grace and I got into it, was to provide equity for our kids. I mean, we sort of, touched on this topic that it's really difficult for kids to get into a market right now. I mean, almost impossible, right? So how can mom and dad help to help them with this equity? So by buying real estate, you're actually building equity, right? But what I'm finding as almost a side benefit is that the cash flow is actually supplementing the income to the point where I'm actually considering to retire on an early basis.
Wow.
Right? So
Was that sooner than you thought, Lisa?
It's interesting because I've always in the back of my mind wanted to retire before the golden 65. This just makes it that much easier, to be perfectly honest, right? So the strategy, and even within the joint venture agreement, we've decided, that we will hold for X number of years and reassess.
Got it.
And have, some triggers. But for me, the buy and hold is definitely the way to go from a capital appreciation, but
Yes.
the income is certainly something that I didn't expect.
That's awesome.
Right? So, yeah. So,
Can I
yeah,
ask,
yeah.
and you don't have to give me the exact years, but kind of a rule of thumb,
Yeah.
because I know a lot of people who are listening right now are thinking, what is the amount of years that you guys reassess within your joint venture agreement? I don't need to know specifics, but how did you guys come to that number? Because I get that call a lot when people are thinking about doing joint ventures.
Do you wanna-
Is there is it every year? Is it that soon that you guys will reassess? Okay.
Well,
No. I believe I have to look back. I don't even remember, but I
Yeah.
think we said 5 years.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, it gives it enough time to do
Yes.
the buy and hold, and hopefully the appreciation will be
Yeah.
there. Could turn around, who knows? But I've always done buy and hold myself, and other than a couple. Well, the one flip, that was the only flip.
Did you
I
learn
ever
that
did
from
was-
Dad? Where did that come from?
No,
Okay.
well, just the income.
she's
the
just
extra,
a smart cookie.
Yes,
No,
exactly.
it was just the extra income. So, when I first bought that piece of property, interest rates back then were 17%.
Yeah.
Not like
Amazing.
today.
Do you remember what you purchased it for? Approximately?
It was like something like 75,000. It was a
Makes sense?
condo.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. But at the time, a single income, and
17%
It's
on your
relative.
mortgage.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what a
incredible.
credit card interest rate. Like if you keep a balance on it,
Right.
right? Yeah, it's crazy.
But then you saw the income coming in, and when it started cash flowing, it's like, oh, good,
this
So I've
is
got my own
making it-
income now. I've got
Yes.
some extra income,
absolutely.
which certainly helped.
Awesome.
And you save up for that, and you buy your next one, and so on and so forth. But our strategy has been for the property that we purchased jointly has been the buy and hold for sure.
Yeah.
Do you think that's probably one of the most important points when it comes to a joint venture, that everyone's goals have to be aligned? Like, I know we touched on it a little bit earlier. Like for example,
I think so, because if you're too disconnected, it's harder to make things work. If you're more in alignment, then things just flow. That's
Yeah.
much more smoother, right?
The majority, yeah.
Yeah.
And we also did say, we could agree to disagree.
Yes.
Now, it is easier when you have an odd number, like 3 people,
Yeah.
because
Right.
you could go majority. But for the most part, we have similar personalities, so it's easier that way.
I have a joint venture with my 2 older brothers, and what we always say is that if we don't come to a decision, if the
Yes.
2 don't sell the third, then that means you do nothing. And so you need the 2
There
need
you
to
go.
sell the third
third one,
person, because
yeah.
there's usually 2 people that are feeling
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you can't come to an agreement, that means you can't.
You
do
walk
anything.
away.
So it's,
Yeah.
it's one of those, and you
Yeah.
just gotta
Yeah.
come back to the drawing board.
Yep.
We use 5 years as well.
Yeah.
Because of the passive appreciation, but also you get that mortgage pay down, and
It is.
Yes.
more of your monthly payment
That
goes
equity.
towards principal,
So
and
when
you
we're-
build more equity.
When we're here in 5 years from now, you can
Yeah.
ask us that question
I
again.
love it. I love it. And then 5 years later, and it just goes on and on. I wanted to again go back to my question. What's some opportunities that make you kind of get excited now?
So for me,
Yes.
moving forward, My children are 26 and 24. I'm actually taking this as an opportunity to teach them now while they're young.
Yes.
So, guys, go out there. You're starting to make some money. Buy yourself, a condo that you can, take possession 2 or 3 years from now, with the caveat that it's not really for you, but you're going to invest it. And mom's going to teach you along the way.
Are they
as
receptive to that? I know your two boys. I mean, I've spoken to them. Are they receptive to it?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. So, one of them say, so when do you think I could sell? Or when do you think it's a good time to sell? I'm like, no, remember, when we talked about this, it's really buy and hold. So this will become an income, like
Rather than
Cathy
a
is
flip.
saying,
Yes.
than a flip, right? And what you're going to do in the meantime, because you're 24 years old,
Yes.
for goodness sakes.
Yes.
You have your whole life ahead of you, You're just starting to work now. Now you start saving to buy something for yourself.
Yeah.
And see, I also think they have a hard time understanding, especially at that age, is that, so if you bought a condo for $400,000, that in 20 years from now, I like to think that every 10 years it's going to double.
Double. Yeah.
So it's going to be worth $1.2 million, if not a little bit higher than that. Now, bread is not going to be the same price that it is today. However,
It's all relative.
It's all relative.
Yeah.
However,
But the
fact,
appreciation.
the appreciation and the fact that the mortgage has been paid down.
Yeah, exactly.
And every 5 years, when you're reassessing, like we were talking about it from a joint venture perspective, most importantly, you can refinance.
That's it.
Now you can pull out some money, you can go to Vegas.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm a little bit biased, and I would think that you should buy a little bit more real estate, at least one property. But I think the kids forget that. That age group just forgets that there is so much life to live. Like 24 is so young,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But going back
I know, and when I explained to the kids, you're going to make this, cash coming in, I said, and they're actually going to pay for your mortgage, so you're not going to be paying for the mortgage down. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, really? How does that work? So you walk
And
them
you
through
walk them
it.
through it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yes.
That's good.
Yes.
And then,
Yeah.
they're starting to work and they start asking you other questions. So, company has stock options or RSPs, right, Lisa?
Yes.
How do
for
we
sure.
What do I
What
do
do
with
that?
this now,
Yeah.
Mom?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, let's
Yeah.
sit down and
Yeah.
discuss
Yeah.
this,
It is.
right?
Very much so.
You guys have a little bit more experience because your kids are older than mine, but would you not agree that they just did not or they will not learn these things in school? In terms of
I-
what to invest and they just don't
You-
really learn a lot of it.
Unless you're into like an economics or
Right.
something along that line.
Right.
But even some of the tactics and the strategies that we're aware of, they don't learn that.
Yes.
They don't. So
It's not readily available.
It's not. No. So what we've been able to teach them has been amazing, right? So
So now, how about some tips when it comes to finding tenants? You mentioned earlier, Cathy, that you just do it, but is there anything, is there a horror story that you've maybe been through?
I've had
Oh, yes, okay.
I wouldn't call it a horror story.
Okay,
I
cool.
mean, I've always gone through an agent, actually.
Okay.
I've never found a tenant on my own.
Okay.
I've always used a professional.
Right.
I'd rather pay someone to do it right.
This is not an
And it-
infomercial by any means where I think
Yeah.
that you
No.
need to use an agent. I think there's definitely
No, but that's
advantages.
Okay,
awesome.
that's the
that's what I've
experience.
done.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah,
what
for
I've
sure.
done in the past. I mean, I've had to be honest with you, there hasn't been a lot of bad tenants in there. I may have had one, but you deal with it, and
how many
you
years
move
are
on.
we talking, right? Like, just have
Yeah.
that one. You don't have to answer the question.
No,
I'm just thinking,
exactly.
in terms of, if
Not
you look
giving
at,
away our ages here.
Yeah.
that's why I said you don't have to answer that question.
Yes.
A lot of people forget that. Like,
Yeah.
you're owning this piece of real estate for 10, 15, 20 years. Man, it's like owning a business. Like,
Yeah.
somebody owns a Shoppers Drug Mart down the street. Things get stolen.
It is.
Things
That's right.
break.
Yes.
It's just like, it's the
Very much so.
same thing.
But you know what else too is the key thing is making sure that you treat them with the same respect that you want back. So,
Oh, I love you for saying this.
so-
Continue, please.
But
Yeah.
of
So
course.
yeah, I mean, like little gifts when they move in, walking them through things. It's not like you're handing them a key and you never see them again,
No.
except waiting
I
for their
agree.
checks. Make them feel like they're human beings, also, right?
I see it so many times. Like,
Yeah.
the landlords think they're here, and
Oh.
tenants, you're
Oh.
beneath
Yeah,
me. Like,
yeah.
I just
And-
don't get it.
And I keep in touch with all of my tenants, and it's like, is everything okay? Do you need
Nice.
anything from us? Just
Yeah.
give me a call. You
Yeah.
know where to reach me. I'm
Yeah.
going to be out of town, so if you try to reach me,
Wow.
well, I don't tell them where I go, but
I mean, so you're just letting them even
oh
know.
no, I do because I remember once I had a tenant. I was on vacation, and I don't even remember, something had happened, but and they were panicking and everything else. So now, lesson learned.
Right.
In the future, what I do is, I usually tell my tenants I'm going to be out of town. If you need to reach me, you can reach me by text, whatever else. If I'm not around, it's an emergency. Go ahead, do whatever you need to do, and we'll deal with it when I get home. But as long as it's true emergency, I mean, don't go.
Yeah.
I mean, they've always been good that way.
I love that you got to that topic, because like I said, I just don't, why investors forget that the tenants are essentially, if you look at it every year, they're paying down approximately, I would say, anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 a year of your mortgage. Forget the cash flow. Forget the passive appreciation.
Absolutely, just that alone.
So I always like to tell investors, like, if I were to give you a bag full of cash of $8,000, be a little nice to me. Like, don't be such, a prick. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me why you'd be so rude.
No.
So I generally like to end these pod sessions with going around the table and asking for one tip. And that tip can be anything from somewhat philosophical or specific, like right down to a real estate investment, anything that you think that can bring immense value to somebody who's watching or listening. So I'm going to start with Lisa and put her on the spot, and she'll be number one as Cathy and Grace get to think about their answer. So Lisa, that one tip for someone who's listening. And again, our listeners range from real estate investors, home buyers and sellers, to someone who's starting as an entrepreneur and just looking for strategies from a leadership perspective, or just thinking about owning their own business. So
my pearls of wisdom is really, don't walk away from an opportunity. Keep an open mind. So, for example, we could have walked away from the one that we share in, that one unit that we share in, but we liked it, it made sense, and we said, how can we make this happen? So that really should be the golden rule. How do we make this happen?
Just try to find
it. As long as it resonates with you, it's for the right reasons, it is cash flowing, you're not, you've done all your due diligence and it still makes sense, don't be afraid to look for alternatives.
Yeah.
Right?
And along the same lines, go with your gut.
Yes.
Like a lot of people think, oh, should I, shouldn't I? If you're willing to take a risk and reap the rewards, then go ahead. Worst case that can happen is you've learned a lesson. And, you change it the next time. You do something differently. Go with your gut.
Go with your gut. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. And don't let fear, as Lisa was saying, hold you back. Fear is the number one thing I think that holds everybody back, right? And if you don't take the plunge, assuming all the numbers and everything else works, and this is something you want to try, don't let fear over consume you. Listen to your stomach. Bypass that fear and go into action mode and see how you can make it work.
You see one of the books behind me, Tony Robbins, when he talks about fear, he says, figure out and feel the butterflies and get them to fly straight. It's really sitting down and just kind of breathing and figuring that out.
That is,
my tip, as I like to end it off with one of my tips, is if you've had and you run into a roadblock from a financing perspective, and you're not able to get financing because now you have 4, 5, 8 properties, is find either friends, family, or go out to networking groups or investment groups and find other like-minded investors and do a joint venture. I think you guys are, the picture perfect people in that sense, where you're just willing to do a joint venture. Don't be scared to do it. Figure out the contracts. We have lawyers for that. There's a team of experts that we can put in place. But also, don't be afraid to kind of bring it all to tie it together, so to speak. Don't be afraid to do this type of investment, real estate investment specifically, together with someone else.
Absolutely.
Ladies, I hope I brought some value and I made this fun for you today.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for doing this. I love you, ladies. Thank
Thanks
you
for having us.
Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
Jas.
Thank you.
Okay.
Awesome.